Welcome! You are listening to the CRM Success Show, where you will hear from CRM executives who have overseen some of the most interesting and complex CRM implementations. Your hosts, David Masri and Kiro Whitey, will be bringing you real stories, real insight. Follow along on social media for updates on new episode releases, exclusive content, and much more. Enjoy the show and thanks for listening.
Welcome to the CRM Success Show, where we deep dive into CRM success and failure. Today we're talking with Ankur Gupta, the Director of Software Engineering at Ciena. So welcome, Ankur.
Thank you, Maz. Thank you, Carol. Nice to meet you both.
You as well. And so Ankur, we had a chance to meet at Dreamforce in person, in the flesh. How would you summarize Dreamforce quickly in a few words? What was your impression this year?
Definitely a continuation of Agentforce, right? And I was definitely stoked from the last Dreamforce we had. There was a lot of new products Salesforce had, launched last Dreamforce. This year, I think Salesforce was more focused on how to make an agentic enterprise, basically taking it one level further to say, okay, we have the AI, but how to make sure we are able to put it into action? How do we actually groom our teams or enterprise to work on the AI projects? So I would say it was more of a continuation, and definitely gave me some insights or some food for thought on how I can make my team more AI focused and future ready.
Amazing. Well, I know we're going to cover some of that later on in the show, but before we do, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you, Ankur, and your background, please?
Absolutely. So, well, now been working in the software space for now 20 years, right? I've been into software space from my education when I did my engineering in computer science, and then, started my work into the software industry as well. Funny thing is, out of those 20 years, 19 of those have been dedicated to CRM applications. I started working as a product development software engineer for Siebel at that time. Siebel, CRM, it used to be the top CRM product at that time. And then, actually I was part of a couple of their big releases they had, Siebel 8.1, 8.2, if anyone of you have worked on Siebel. But then after that, I moved on into the consulting space to see, okay, the product that I have built, how does it actually look when it is implemented for a customer, right? That's when I joined IBM and then, implemented quite a few Siebel CRM projects, greenfield ones for a lot of their customers. And then within IBM, then of course, tides were shifting, things were changing from on-premise software systems to SaaS. Of course, Salesforce were at the forefront of it. And then I would say at that time, I switched it was a very natural shift for me to just move from Siebel to Salesforce. At least the CRM pieces remain the same in terms of domain knowledge. And then I've been working in Salesforce for now 10 years. Yes, 10 years, actually, 2025, so 10 years. And, it's been a pretty exciting journey on Salesforce so far. The reason I love Salesforce is Salesforce always is keeping itself very latest and greatest with the technology that are coming up. You can see Agentforce. Salesforce is not lagging behind in any way. They are definitely gaming up with everything on the tech stack that they can build. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Great overview. So you worked at Oracle, that you were doing Siebel CRM there. And then like many, they switched from Siebel to Salesforce. You spent time at IBM, PwC, and now, the last 5 years, you've been on the customer side with Ciena. So Ciena, they're a beast of a company in terms of size, but until I met you, I didn't know what Ciena did, to be honest. So why don't you tell our listeners? I'm sure there's a few thinking, Ciena, what do they do too? So high level, what does Ciena do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that Ciena has been in the industry for now. It has been since 1992. And it is an advanced networks engineering company, basically. It largely works on the optical network systems. It creates those products and routers, switches, softwares, and services. And then its major set of customers are all the internet service providers across the globe. Plus now, for the past few years, our cloud network cloud providers like Amazon, Meta, and Google, they are all customers of Ciena as well, because they are setting up their data centers that requires a lot of network bandwidth. In case you don't know, Ciena has the fastest commercial product for networking available. And I don't know if you can imagine, it's 1.6 terabits per second speed, which is the fastest available speed on a commercial networking equipment. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's what Ciena is all about.
Amazing. And your role there is Director of Software Engineering. That's a traditional title, so
Yes.
Most of us could assume what that entails. But very, very quickly, you lead the global Salesforce team.
Right.
Very, very high level. What, how many people is that?
Yep. So as I'll build upon our Ciena, introduction is Ciena now sells hardware, software, and services to its customers globally. And so for that, how to interact with customers, that's where Salesforce comes in. Salesforce is being used to serve our customers when it comes to sales cycle or even post-sales support. And then we also use Experience Cloud to directly touch base with the customers. We have pretty active user base on this org. Like I would say, internal users, we have about 4,000, and then external, 50K plus on our portal, very active. And as you asked me about my team, I have a global team of around 50-ish people, multiple time zones within the US as well as in India, and one person in UK as well. So it's a pretty global workforce, and it's pretty cool to see these guys working as software engineers. And the reason I say software engineers is because they don't just work on Salesforce as a technology. This team actually works on all the technologies that are also connected with Salesforce in our ecosystem, whether it's the AWS tech stack. Actually, some of the team members in my group work on .NET as well, because there are some legacy applications, and then Slack as well. So
fantastic. And I know we're going to cover a little bit more about that team, and because it wasn't always 50 plus people, so we're going to talk about that a little later. But one of the things I know from our conversations leading up to this podcast is you're a hands-on leader. You still are very active when it on the development front, and you like to build yourself. So this is a good segue into the topic that Maz is going to pick up on, which is around a product that you built focusing on proactive monitoring. So why don't you over to you, Maz? Why don't you lead with that?
Yeah, when we first met, when Kiro introduced us, it was this is one of the things we discussed prior was, the being proactive in monitoring Salesforce, what users are doing, what's working, what's not working, what's going wrong, so you can really be proactive, and I get that the way to deliver an outstanding experience to your users. So yeah, it's not something that's widely done. You don't often see the level of proactivity. So yeah, tell us a bit about that, maybe how it got started, what was the rationale behind it, and then even dive a little bit into the architecture, how you built this thing.
Absolutely, Mas. Thank you. Well, this definitely is very closer to my heart, because one of the things that I don't like as a leader is to be reacting to situations. I like to deal with things head on. And then, when I joined Ciena, one of the things that I noticed was we were seeing certain limit issues on the platform, right? I mean, if you're working on Salesforce, I'm pretty sure everyone understands what governor limits are. They always catch you by surprise. Say, hey, something stopped working. And then after some triage, you'll get to know, oh, you know what? We actually consumed all the limits for something, for example, platform events, right? So what I used to hear a lot when I joined was, our integrations have stopped working because we used to figure out that, we have consumed our platform event limits because we have certain limits that we have as part of the platform, and we have not purchased anything. So every time that happened, the point was, why do we get to know about that when only it has happened? Why can't we just know about it ahead of time so that we can take action on it before it happens? So that's where this whole idea of observability came in, where we knew that we have a Shield platform on our Salesforce org, which spits out the event logs. Now, event logs are a very good way to figure out what all consumption is happening, what all errors are happening in the system. Plus, we also have REST APIs that are available by Salesforce to figure out what limits are, right? Now, we wanted to feed that into a system that can actually actively work on those logs, and then without any human intervention can actually alert us, once we have configured our thresholds for different logs or these kind of limits. So that's where we leverage this enterprise observability platform. It's called Datadog that we use. It's, there are other competitors in the market as well. I'm sure you have heard about Splunk. Splunk also has, that kind of a systems available. But the whole idea there is all the event logs that the Shields spits out, and there are the two kinds of logs actually, real time as well as those batch ones that actually spit out every few hours. And those logs are being fed into this Datadog. And then we have created a ton of monitors, different kinds of monitors. I mean, limits is just one of those many, but you can also think if someone is doing a huge data load that can bring down the system, another one of the common problems in Salesforce, we have a monitor for that as well. It tells me, hey, someone has actually loaded 200,000 plus records in the system in the past few hours. It'll alert us so that we are ready to see if there's anything going down in a few hours or not, right? So there are so many other things that we have now scaled it to. We don't just have these Shield logs. We also have our custom logging framework created so that if there is anything that we want to monitor from a user experience perspective, we can send that into Datadog to create some pattern-based analysis as well. So the idea is all of this information is being fed into a centralized login system or observability platform, as I say it. And then I have created a lot of monitors on top of that. And that if there is a critical alert that we have to publish, and let's say if those are off hours, we also have a paging system integrated with this, which will page us or let's say call us automatically to alert us saying something is going down, so you need to look at it. So that's what it
Wow.
is.
So a couple questions. What exactly is Datadog? Is it like a traditional analytics platform, and then this is built custom on it, or is it specifically made for system monitoring and
It
alerting?
is specially made for this purpose. It's used by a lot of software engineering teams across the industry. And as I said, Datadog is not the only tool available. You will also hear about App Dynamics, for example. Splunk is another one. I really like this product, by the way, because it's very easy to configure. It's the UI UX of this tool is pretty cool, and that's my personal opinion. They have not paid me for it.
Okay, cool. I think it comes with Shield, like CRM
Mhm.
Analytics with a templated dashboard for monitoring.
Yes,
Have you checked that out at all?
yes, we have that too, and
Oh, you use
that
that too?
yes,
Yeah,
we have
go.
that. And the reason we use that is for historical data analysis, because you can keep a lot of data in your for a longer time with the Einstein analytics. So we have that dashboard as well. For example, if something happened, we got to know about some incident in the system, let's say security problem with the data, let's say something, and then we have to see, well, was that a problem for past few months? Then we look at the analytics, CRM analytics, to do that analysis, because we have a lot more data there versus Datadog, where we archive the logs after a certain point to keep the costs in check.
So you're using Datadogs, I guess, for like more immediate type of
Yes.
alerting, and then the CRM Analytic for looking at historical trends.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and this is on top of the Shield logs. I'm not
Mhm.
a super expert in Shield. Shield
Mhm.
has like, or what's it called? Like,
Event logs.
yeah, the event logs, but they trigger alerts. They trigger callouts to Datalog when something happens, or you have to push every event like a CI/CD type thing going out
No,
to.
it happens automatically. Now the good thing is Datadog has a connector with Salesforce available. So it can pull in all those event logs at a certain frequency. We pull it every 3 or 4 hours. But even in the event logs, there are two kinds, as I said before. One is real time. They're pushed immediately any event happens, and there are a limited set of those logs, probably 12 or 15. But the broader set of events are in the batches, which are like 60, 70, or maybe, I don't know, probably 80 now. So all of those are being pushed into this system. And we have created monitors on all of them.
Oh, real cool. Can you give us a couple of examples of like when this kind of saved you?
Yes, limits, for example. I mean, limits is not through event logs, first of all, by the way. There is a different REST API for that. But because it is being pushed in there, as I told you before, we used to have a lot of platform events related issues before, right? Because we were reacting to them versus understanding what the
But what do you
pattern
do?
is.
Somebody's using up all your API calls. Okay, so now what? What are you going to do? Tell them stop?
Well, no, but we didn't even know which platform event because it was not very clear to understand what is the usage of platform events until you create a case with Salesforce, right? Now we have because we are looking at the limits ahead of time. What we found as a pattern was at the end of every month, the consumption used to spike up because of certain business activities at the end of
month
the
end.
month.
That makes sense.
Yes, exactly, right? So when we found out that pattern, what we did was, first of all, we were able to pinpoint, okay, what is happening? Which platform event would it be out of those tens of platform events we have on the system? Then we pinpointed a few after that, and then we were able to remediate the process or redesign that process so that that problem was gone. The whole thing I'm trying to say is because we have all these events coming in, we were able to find a pattern in the system, and we were able to pinpoint the root cause of the problem, and then we were able to correct that. What we also did, by the way, after that, we also bought certain additional platform event limits.
Got it. So I know this whole initiative was to support, I guess, the idea of identifying problems before users report it, right? That was the premise of why you set out about going about this. How long did it take to kind of put this together and have it implemented, up and running? Was that a big uplift to build it, or was it a quick win per se? Or
it actually took, I would say, it was more of a side project, to be honest. I mean, it was not kicked off as something like a full-blown project, but it was like, okay, let's see what happens when we do this. And then that was done within a couple of months. And after that, it was an incremental, because when we started off, it was just probably 4 or 5 monitors in the system. If we look at this now, 3 years, we probably have between 80 and 100 different monitors, because the program has been widely successful. And in fact, it has been so successful that other software engineering teams within Ciena have also implemented that kind of system.
Fantastic. So good success there. It's been expanded into different teams. The teams are benefiting from that.
Yes.
I guess it could be difficult to maybe ask you how successful it was in terms of a metric. The key is the success. It's been embedded and implemented elsewhere, but any kind of headline facts that you're pretty confident, we saved X amount of issues, or?
I can say, what I can say is we used to get at least 1 or 2 limit issues. For example, if I just focus on the limits, for the past probably 2 years, we haven't had any limit issues at all.
Wow. Okay. So that in itself, just for that one purpose alone, the limits, it's been a success. So, because they can be pricey, right? I believe if you hit them and you need to extend them and so on, there's a financial impact, I believe.
Can be, yes, because Salesforce is courteous enough they will raise the limit by courtesy, but you cannot ask them every month, right? It's not a courtesy anymore then if you're asking every month for those.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's often done when migrating to a new org. You got to just load a ton of data or something, and you're going to trigger a ton of API calls and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes you'll ask for that kind of courtesy. Did you ever look at this from a financial perspective, in terms of how you're utilizing what features, and maybe you should turn something off, or expand usage of something or negotiate with Salesforce?
Very good question, Maz, because we have a signature support from Salesforce, which is their top tier support level, right? Now, one of the things signature support promises is that the same narrative, right? That we will tell you the issue before you get to know about it. But the reality is, because of our own implementation, we get to know that issue much before Salesforce notifies us.
Oh, cool.
So,
So it's funny. So I have a strong database background, right?
yes.
And people who know me obviously work with data a lot. Um, and uh, and uh, and you know that obviously from your Oracle SQL days, right? If you're doing
Mhm.
your job well, which you clearly are, nothing happens. And then you kind of, how do I say, not get credit for nothing happening. It's like you're not doing anything. You ever struggle with that kind of stuff? It's like why do I need your team? Nothing goes wrong, and you're like nothing goes wrong because I have a team type
Well,
thing.
there are things that can go wrong, especially
I know
let's
they
say
can, but they don't because you're on top of it. So nobody knows, right? So something.
Mhm.
So for example, your database is spiking, your API calls are spiking. So you
Mhm.
take action, you intervene. Nothing stops. Everything runs smoothly. Trains are on time. Nobody's
So,
complaining.
yes, I think it's good to have no such kind of an action happening, to be honest, because whenever there is a P1, there is this whole, it comes along with a lot of um, headaches, you can say, at that time. So I think I
Uh-huh.
definitely do not want those. Now, one of the metrics that we have at the leadership level is also at the quarterly meetings we have is, did our application end up in a P1 kind of a situation? And honestly, we celebrate if there were 0 P1s on our application. So that's the measurement of success, that if there were no issues in that quarter, it means there was something done very right there. Because everyone understands that it's impossible to not have any issues. But if you really have that 0 number on your quarterly review, it means something has been done right. I'm not saying that with arrogance or something, but it's we can
No,
still
it's
have
true.
issues. We still have issues. It's not that all the monitors we have created, is a 360-degree, coverage of everything. But every time we have a new one, we create additional monitors so that we don't have that same issue ever again.
So that project, whilst you obviously led it, it was a team effort, which brings us on to our next area of focus for today, which is your team. So when you joined Ciena,
Mhm.
how big was your team initially, Ankur?
So I would say the team was largely full-time employees at that time. And then it was, I would say, about 20-ish
Yeah.
people. And right now we are a much larger combination of FTEs, full-timers plus contractors, because we are scaling in that fashion. And we are sitting at between 45 to 50 people. It comes on and off because we are able to scale up and down with contractors much easier.
Yeah. I don't know, at one point in that time as well, it even reached a higher peak. So all in all, you've kind of seen this, almost 3x growth of that team. And one thing we know is that that team is global. You touched on that in your intro. So I'm curious, you joined the business 5 years ago. It's a heavy FTE model. Was that all onshore FTEs when you joined?
And good question. Well, definitely there was much more presence in North America to start with because we had people here already. But one of the things that was happening was also that we need to scale in other geographies also, not just for cost benefits, but also for a better coverage, because we also have business units, not just in North America, we also have business units in different parts of the globe. So in order to serve that, we wanted to have the follow the sun model, as we call it, that have a 24/7 coverage to take care of our stakeholders. So that's why we have definitely expanded in India region for sure. And at this time, I would say our ratio is 40-60, North America and India. So, and that ratio also considers, does it? No, just FTs, I think.
FTs. Okay. So I like the follow the sun model. So let's focus on that for a second. So the idea of 24/7 support, it sounds fantastic, right? Somebody's always going to be online around the clock, and work's being done whilst other teams sleep. I mean, it sounds dreamlike. That's an ideal scenario for a leader. But how do you make that work in reality? Because you can't have your onshore team working India hours, for example. They might do it for a couple of months and then they're going to get frustrated and they don't want to be on calls at 5 a.m. or 9 p.m. at night. So how do you do the follow the sun model sustainably whilst also ensuring that you don't have what feels like mini business units that don't really interact with one another at the same time? I guess from your experience, you've probably done that in the past as well, but what are some, because this is a very hot topic right now, right? Some of it is cost savings, some of it is round the clock support. But how did you go about that?
I mean, one thing I want to clarify, support is not really the production support. It's basically working with our business, because in fact, I would say a large portion of my team, I would say 90% of my team's bandwidth goes into transformational work largely, or transformational plus, upgrading the existing functionalities. Because as you obviously know, now Ciena's business is growing very fast now, stock price, you would know. So, which means that there are even more transformational objectives coming in. Now, follow the sun model there is definitely where it's about the team mix, right? When you're working on those projects or initiatives, as I call it, is to make sure the team has at least a decent mix of the time zones so that we can support the project. It shouldn't be one time zone aligned, which creates problems unless all the business unit is in one time zone. So that may change the equation, because we definitely have, for example, certain business units who work out of India only, because Ciena definitely has a lot of business out of India also. So can have some teams that are completely just working out of India that are working directly with the business from there. But otherwise, we always make sure that the team mix is in a way that we have people on both sides and work is not stopping. And then sometimes we do have issues, but I try to balance it most of the time. That's the idea.
And do you feel, employees in different teams that maybe they're not onshore as much or have that interaction with the onshore folk? Do you think there's any kind of disconnection in the decision making as a result for those teams, or is that more of a model where here's the task, you go away and report back end of week type thing, a bit more transactional versus, or have you been able to build it in a way where they're still involved in those kind of design choices, development choices?
Well, the way I have created my teams, I have multiple teams working fast paced with the business. The way, at least my intent has always been, that people are able to make their decisions on their own, given then they have the guidelines to follow, right? I definitely have my own Salesforce technical architecture group within my group that serves as you can say, one place to at least give some guidelines to the team on how to make decisions. For example, if there is a service cloud team, for example, they're working with the business directly, and we work in a scrum fashion, sprints. So they are working directly with the business day-to-day basis to get things done for them. And because they have guidelines, they work based on those. And if they still have questions, we have a forum created for them so that they can come in and ask those questions. And if they need additional help, they definitely can be helped. So we are not, that's one of the things I do, or really trying hard as a leader, is to make sure it's not a hierarchical structure of leadership. It's actually a leadership where people are able to make the decisions, because that's the only way I think we can scale. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of bottlenecks everywhere.
Yeah. So how do you deal with skilling up
Mhm.
a response team that follows the sun, right?
Mhm.
Because there's so much you have to know. You got to understand the system, you got to understand the problems. And often they're not involved with development, right? They're the backup. So they don't have the intimate details, let's say. And then at the same time, particularly when you have a very strong uptime, they don't deal with problems often. So now you have somebody, maybe he's East Asia, he deals with an issue with the system once a year, right? How do you keep him up to date in terms of what's going on, how to troubleshoot something, the change within the architecture and the code and the releases, and
Mhm.
in a way that he's still effective and not just responding to the user, "Hey, got your message. I'll let you know." Then wait for the morning when
Yeah.
let's say the core team is really available.
No, all of my teams are actually core teams, is where I was going. I mean, it's not in a way that there are support teams different from core teams or development teams. It's one and the same team largely. It's like, if I give you an example of, let's say there is one team, Scrum team as I call it, or product team as I call it, is a combination of product owners and the engineers who are working together to create a
Okay.
product or build new features. Now, this is also the team that is responsible for any issues that may come up after they have shipped the product to production, right? So the way the teams are structured is everybody in that group is highly intimate with the features. Now we can expect that from, let's say, outside contractors, for example, Mass, to your question. The people that I have in my team, you can call them as SMEs or architects who actually know their
Mhm.
areas very well. Now, sometimes there might be some gaps, let's say, when they're working with additional staff orgs that we have through our vendors, right? Or contractors. Now that's where the gap might be, and that's where our full timers actually help.
Yeah. I think what I'm asking is how do you take that? So great, you have a team, they're experts, but
Mm,
how do you take that and then span it across all time zones, right? So you get that
mm.
24/7 coverage. Could you end up with people that never talk to each other, right? Because they're just
Very
never
good
worked in the
question.
same
I mean,
environment.
it's a large team. There are different teams as well, so there is definitely an element of silo between, let's say, if someone is working on Service Cloud team, they would obviously know what's going on in Service Cloud. But what if Service Cloud change impacts something on the Sales Cloud because they're sharing the object and whatnot or functionality? So for that, what we have done is there is a continuous learning that we do within the whole group. And that brings the whole team together onto the common pacing. They are not just the owner of Service Cloud, they actually own the whole platform, and everyone at least has a baseline understanding of what this platform means for the whole Ciena. And that has been very transformational, to be honest. This is something I created about, let's say 18 months back or so. It's called Learning Series in my group and has been very effective. Has, at least from what it was 18 months back, definitely has brought people together to understand the common objectives of the team. But there is still, I would say, definitely a lot more we can improve. But for such a large team, definitely these are some of the challenges that we have to deal with, and just
Challenge.
learning.
It sounds like it's a big benefit because you have a big team, you're able to do that. If you're a small
Mm,
team, it's just not possible. Um,
yeah, always positives and negatives. Yeah.
yeah, I
What
suppose. Go ahead, Kieran.
what about some of the maybe infrastructure challenges of building global teams? So
Mm,
um, we like to think, obviously, in the US or UK, whatever,
mhm,
the reliability of things like Wi-Fi and the infrastructure is more established. It's been around longer. Whereas perhaps I know like LATAM, sometimes they have big outages, and maybe these countries are impacted a lot more by weather conditions or whatever. Right? There's a ton of different factors. I guess when you're building your teams, like how and you're interviewing resources, whether they're individuals or through a company, whatever, right? Is that something you're mindful of and you pay attention to? Like, do they have the physical infrastructure set up to be successful in their role? Do they have the right laptops, equipment, and
yes.
audio sets and Wi-Fi speeds? Like, because sometimes people, I think customers can sometimes see the hiring process as the same as going and getting somebody in the US, and it's not. There's more you have to kind of consider. For example, like, I know the currency changes with USD to Indian rupees, for example, in the last 10 years has dramatically changed, and the cost of hiring in India has gone up as a result. So there's a lot more outside of a normal US hire. So what are some of those considerations you would advise other leaders that are building global teams to take into consideration?
I mean, if the question is about hiring, Carol, right? I mean, or let me come to your first question, if I understand it correctly. Infrastructure-wise, I haven't, at least for the people we have on board already, I haven't seen any infrastructure issues with people. I mean, there's no noise in the background. Things are pretty quiet. People are very professional. And one of the things that I have seen at Ciena, that Ciena is very good at providing infrastructure support to its employees, whether the person is in the US or India or anywhere in the globe. They will provide them the very good infrastructure support, whether it is for set up their home office. Network is never a problem with us generally, right?
Yeah.
You're giving them a terabyte a second?
That's expensive, but it's not a problem for anyone. So that's a good thing. And as far as the equipment is concerned, everyone gets pretty good equipment as well. So as far as RFTs are concerned, or even the contractors, we haven't seen any issues in terms of the infrastructure. For hiring the external one advice I would definitely give, especially in this remote first world, is always keep your cameras on. Because I have seen in certain instances that the interviews have not gone as they were actually, how should I say it? The feedback we had on the interview in a closed camera situation and after we hired was totally different. So keep your cameras on, make sure you are actually talking to the right person when you're interviewing.
Yeah, I think maybe the oldest trick in the book, I think, is that scenario, right, where cameras off, one person does the interview, another person's hired. I mean, that's been a big problem over the years, and especially it's been accelerated in the Salesforce ecosystem over the last 5 years as well, pretty much pandemic time. But I guess with remote teams offshore, some companies adopt the model of, okay, we'll just have a physical presence, a physical office in a certain part of, it don't have to be India or Philippines, whatever, right? We'll have a physical hub so we can control the environment a little more. Obviously, for you make sure as a business you set them up for success by providing the right infrastructure, the right tools and equipment for them to be successful. Do you think there's a right way or a wrong way, or is it just preference of the business? If the business is a remote first business anyway, does that dictate maybe what they do offshore? How would you kind of think on those lines? What's your personal opinion?
You mean the work division between onshore and offshore, or?
Like if you're hiring, offshore teams, do you think they're more effective in an office environment for offshore teams than completely remote? I have customers, for example, that they are remote in the US, but their offshore teams are in a physical office. I was wondering if you've got opinions based on your experience of working with global teams over the years.
Well, I do like the fact that the people are within defined range so that they can meet each other often. For example, we have our office in India, and then we tend to hire people around that region so that at least it's easier for them to come to the office whenever they want to meet each other, because it definitely helps. I definitely am a believer that sometimes the things you can achieve within a closed conference room within a couple of hours can take days, sometimes remotely, when you're setting up meetings and all of that. So I do see value in that. Generally speaking, though, it has not been a challenge because people have been very flexible and accommodative to their schedules and making sure they are actually meeting the objectives. Even though we have a pretty tight work schedule for my team, given that Salesforce is in high demand for meeting the business objectives, I think the team has been, I would say, fairly mature to actually level up and meet the objectives. So that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts on advice or things to take into account for individuals, especially leaders that might be tasked with building a global workforce in 2026? Any other advice you'd provide or thoughts?
I mean, one of the things, I don't know if I have seen anyone else doing, I don't know, but because we have a global workforce, it means my idea has always been to give enough power, as I was saying before, for people to be able to make decisions so that they are also feeling accountable for what they're working on. Plus, they're also feeling something that they can feel proud of if they have done it, because they have, they are working on this. So that feeling of pride is very important for our people, whether it's a person in the US, North America, whichever part of the world. I think it's very important that they feel the ownership of the work they are working on. And I think everything aligns very well when that happens. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. Over to you, Maz.
Yeah. So the other, or one of the other things we spoke about previously was how you guys are using AI at Ciena.
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? If you're using Agent Force or what AI tools you're using.
Yes, absolutely, Maz. Well, I'm not going to talk about the AI that's embedded into our network products. I'll just talk strictly about what is my realm of responsibility, which is Salesforce and its adjoining technology. I mean, we do have Agent Force enabled on our Salesforce org as well. I mean, we in fact enabled even before it was called Agent Force, when it came out as Copilot. We had the case summary, some of the features on the services side enabled. Case summaries was one of them. Einstein replies, as it used to be called at that time, were enabled. We had a AI on certain, even before GAI came in, which is like customer sentiment, which was purely based on predictive AI, right? So those things were there. We have also enabled Agent Force for our sales teams. Not heavily adopted so far, but there are more features that we are going to build in. What I would say where the highest usage of AI, at least in my team, is using Microsoft Copilot, because we have a very developed and mature process, CI/CD processes for development and deployment to our production. What we have done is, obviously everyone can use MS Copilot for development. We have given them the licenses for that, and it's been, I think I would say, a year already when people have been using it. So much so that we are now saying people sometimes, make sure, follow some of the design best practices for code as well, because sometimes people get really lazy and then they prompt the Copilot to say, just write the code, and then they forget that, there are some better ways to do it as well. So that has happened recently, but proud of the fact that the team is very good with using MS Copilot in their VS Code for development, not just for code, Apex, LWC tests, but also for sometimes metadata creation also within VS Code. Yes.
Yeah, real quick. I believe you also said you were using it for code reviews.
Yes.
Right, as a standard. Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yes. So as I said, we have a mature CI/CD process. Nothing goes to production without a pull request review. Now, whenever the pull request, which is basically a technical term for saying that, my changes are ready, they're available in GitHub repo for review, the Copilot reviewer comes in and automatically reviews the PR and creates a whole summary of what the changes are, what changes were done. Is there anything that should be, done differently? So it's like a first level review before a human comes in to say, okay, everything is good or not. It reduces our cycle time, because now the developer has a bot reviewer, enabled by Gen AI to say, okay, code, this is something you should do differently. And then the developer will go back to change the code and come back to commit the code back to the PR, and then the human can review. So it reduces the time that another peer developer has to review. And also, it reduces a lot of friction between the team as well.
So it also it also reviews its own code, right? Which was previously written, I get, with the developer and using Copilot.
Yes.
Did it ever give you some interesting results?
It's actually very good. It's actually way too, I mean, it looks for perfection, obviously, right? Sometimes you have to say, this is okay, we know about this, but it's pretty good. We're liking it so much that we also had this whole static code analysis tool embedded into our repo. I mean, we are seeing that Gen AI will become so good that we can just create those rules for the Copilot itself, and then we can do away with the static code analysis tool that we had for years.
Really?
Yes. I mean, not there yet. We'll have to create certain rules. Say, okay, we're going to give you some instructions so that you can just review the code based on those instructions.
So, did you by and large write these instructions, or Copilot figured it out by itself? Like, for example, like really stupid. I hard coded a token into my code, right? Big no.
Yeah.
Copilot's smart enough to say, "Hey, don't do that," or you have to tell it check for hard coded credentials, check
No,
for inefficient loops.
I think those are standard coding problems that Copilot would be able to figure out as a reviewer. What I'm trying to state is, there are certain additional things we would like to do. Instructions saying, okay, the object naming was not as per our standards. For example, there was no description in the metadata. Those things are not checked by default. So I think those kind of rules are checked by the static code analysis. But if we can just code those rules in Copilot, then I don't think we'll need static code analysis, for example.
So, what is an example of one that you had to explicitly tell it? I mean, that's a good one. The naming conventions and I guess code structure type stuff. You wouldn't let it fix that by itself, would you?
I mean, that's another one that's coming, by the way. There is because we are now piloting a feature called Copilot Dev Agents, which is a new feature that was released a few, I would say, weeks back or months back, and we have recently got access to that. What that means is you can create a Jira story with the details of what needs to be done in human language, English, right? And then you can assign it to a Copilot developer bot, and it'll do everything for you, including deployment to production. I mean, of course,
we know we know that's the dream, right? I hear even more so that I hear they want to just feed it the Zoom recordings or the recordings of the business requirements gathering sessions, the discovery sessions. Take that, summarize it, create the Jira stories, then assign the Jira story to a developer agent, and then we'll see.
It's not there yet. It's not there yet, because I think even with that Jira story creation, to be honest, because I am a user of Copilot myself, I refine my own requirements when I'm working with Copilot, for example. Say, okay, don't do it this way, do it that way, and all of that. So you'll have to be, I think, really prescriptive on the story if you really want Copilot to work effectively independently. So that's why I'm saying we are piloting it. We don't know if it'll work really well, but our guess is, let's say if we find a bug in a code, I create a bug to say, okay, just fix it. We have seen Copilot is pretty good at trying to figuring out what the issue is and just fixing it with, let's say, a couple of lines of code.
Is that true even with both syntax? I think it'll do a great job at, right? But like more of a logic issue.
Yes, it does. Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, you tell it, you run the whole code file, for example, and say, I got this error from this code. It'll say, I know where the problem is. It'll auto fix it. It's
Often
cool.
it does. I mean,
Yes.
I struggle sometimes, honestly, with it. I mean, I do a lot of data work, so I'll have it like write SQL code for me on occasion. And what'll happen is I spend so much time reviewing the code. It's like I feel like, what am I doing? But it'll be like okay, write the code. Great. Now write some test cases. Great. Now you failed your own test cases. What's going on? That kind of thing. It's definitely different way of development to take some kind of adjustment.
It's very different way of development. Yes, you
Yeah.
don't worry about syntax. You worry about the logic more after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm just overly cautious. I spent so much time reviewing its code, just trying to it's almost like looking at another person's code.
Yes, I
So
mean
yeah,
it's
if you got to try to give it into small,
correct. I mean,
digestible bites.
I agree with you as well, because sometimes the LWCs we have created with Copilot, for example, it adds a lot of tags that are not even compliant with our framework of Lightning framework. It adds a lot of HTML tags just to make sure it looks pretty. So we have to be, yes, it's not perfect, but that's why we say that right now we need a human in the loop for sure to make sure it actually is
Um,
best.
so kind of switching. You doing anything with autonomous bots, agents, or
Yes.
but not like an actual bot that goes out and does something.
Mm. We have agents. Yes, we
Eh,
definitely have
Can you give
agents.
us a couple examples?
Yes, we have a sales agent we created using Agentforce already.
Okay, cool.
It's in production,
Let's do-
but it doesn't. I mean, it's the standard one that we have out of the box. There's no separate
So it's like a
customization.
chat bot on the website type.
Right. Yes. So you can talk to the agent and say, tell me the total value of the opportunities, for example. This is pretty much out of the box features. Now, as far as the specific business use cases are concerned, those are in discussion. And then agent force discussion becomes pretty tricky when it comes to pricing them on how much it's going to cost once we have a business use case. So we are in that loop right now. So
You heard
it's
that
not easy.
story? The guy went on to I don't remember which car company it was, to
Mhm.
buy a car, and then he was talking to the agent, convinced the agent to sell him the car for $1, and then closed
Oh,
the
I know.
order, and then took them to court. Believe it, when they
Wow.
refused to sell him the car. He did lose, I will say, where the
Mhm.
court said that it didn't have the authority to do that. I don't know if it was an extreme case, but it does introduce a weird, like, a legal issue, right? Like,
Yes.
why am I talking to this agent that doesn't have the authority to make a sale, if it can just backtrack? So it's interesting to see where this kind of things will go. Now, granted,
Yes.
this is an extreme use case,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, somebody's gonna figure out, right? It's almost like you conning a junior salesperson, except that you would lose, right? Because he had the authority. So it's interesting to see where this is gonna go in the
Yeah,
next
no, I
couple.
absolutely agree. I don't think it's there. I've seen some documentaries as well where people were able to manipulate the outputs of the agents in a totally different way. And one thing we have at Ciena is definitely a security council that reviews every AI use case before it can be actually worked on. It slows down things a little bit, but it's actually very good that we have a legal team reviewing those AI use cases before we build them.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit about AI agents. There's a lot of potential there, both for the business, but also just the ecosystem in general, other companies that are going down the agent force path. Anything else that you're excited about next year? Any that you can share, or just general trends that you're looking forward to going into next year?
On the sales, I mean, agent wise, AI wise, certainly yes. I mean, I think agent force is definitely one technology, but it's not the only technology. And as I was saying before, my team is not just working on one technology. They love to work on others as well. So we already have Microsoft Copilot agents in production working on certain other use cases. And then we are also trying out the Google agent space as we speak as well, to compare and see which one would surface as an enterprise-wide AI platform versus what can be more app-specific ones, for example, Agentforce. But it totally depends. I think when you talk to Salesforce, we will hear that Agentforce can also be an enterprise-wide platform. That is something that we have to see when the product matures, right? So
Outside of AI agent force, anything within the Salesforce product suite that you keep an eye on, or any kind of integration tools, or that have got you curious?
Revenue Cloud, for sure.
Revenue Cloud, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. We have CPQ also implemented. with us. And knowing that now that CPQ or SteelBrick is has, I think, probably gone out of support already, or maybe it's going out of support soon. So Revenue Cloud is definitely on top of our mind to see if we can leverage that to migrate, because there were certainly some limitations with SteelBrick that we were dealing with for some years. And we have to try out Revenue Cloud and see if their coding product or this new one actually can, bypass or, has better solution for all of those problems.
Yeah. What about the Informatica purchase? What do you think of that?
We are not Informatica customers at Ciena. We have a different technology for analytics. We do use Einstein AI, by the way, but not Informatica.
It's more ETL. I tend to think of
Yeah.
Informatica. The rumor is they bought it for the MDM solution. I guess Data Cloud's not cutting it. I don't know. They Data Cloud's not an MDM though, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't have much information on Informatica or even an opinion, because as far as data is concerned, Ciena also has a different data team. And because we don't use Informatica, we use a totally different tech stack. We do have MDM, by the way, but from a different software company.
Siebel?
It's no.
You want-
So we obviously met at Dreamforce. Any plans on the meetup space? Any world tours? I know it's kind of just missed the New York one, for example, but for next year, are you planning on any conferences in particular, whether it's Salesforce or adjacent tech conferences?
It's hard to say for now, but I think it can be another one at Dreamforce, provided I find something exciting. I've been coming to Dreamforce pretty often, so hopefully we'll meet up at Dreamforce.
Yeah, maybe some of our listeners will be able to find you there as well if they want to pick up the conversation in person. So, so it's fantastic. So, any closing statements? This is your podcast, so anything you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap?
No, I think this was a great discussion, Kira and Maz. I think we touched upon some of the very good topics that I had to share with everyone who's listening to this or watching this. So thanks for setting this up, I would say, and I hope there was something informative I could actually share that was meaningful to anyone who would listen. So whoever listens or watches, thank you for listening and watching.
Fantastic. And with that, peace out. Appreciate it.